All right, welcome to Science to Sorcery, the podcast to explore where spirituality and science may overlap. I'm Jake Marco. I am a life activation practitioner and ritual master in the Modern Mystery School. I'm joined today by what I sometimes call Sensei Wes, or Dr. Wesley Clawson. Now, I've met Wes, I believe, over 2 years ago at
I
least.
think so.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, and Wes runs Meiwakan Aikido in Boston and is also a neuroscientist at Tufts who studies how brain tissue changes when you learn. So a multifaceted man. Thank you for joining me, Wes.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So when we first talked about doing this, I think one of the perfect things we decided would be fun to touch on, right? How we met was through Aikido. You're someone who's so passionate about it, and why I was so drawn to when I was looking to do martial arts, you were the first person I learned from, and I was
Mhm.
very drawn to the fact that there was the very physical components of martial arts that your dojo has, of course, but also there's what I called like the sort of Aikido spirit.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and you've called that plenty of times. So I was hoping we could talk a little bit about that and sort of what that means to have Aikido spirit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the passion's a good word for it. But passion for me is uh too ephemeral. I like action. So for me, I'm very driven by yeah, actions I think derive a lot of what we do. I mean, who you are is kind of a reflection of your interactions with the environment or with the people that you're with. I think you don't exist in a silo. You're you are how you interact with the world, and interactions are actions, right? It's in the word. So for me, what's really interesting for Aikido is that martial arts gives you a space to like do a lot of action. And so some of the nice things about doing a martial art, I mean, of course, I'm going to say that Aikido is the most special and the best, but honestly, I found Aikido randomly and just really liked it, and kept going with it. It could have been judo or karate or, whatever. I It's similar to you. I wandered into someone's dojo. They were phenomenal. One, they were a good martial artist. I think, you should be able to kind of spot a little bit. You can tell when someone's passionate about what they do. Um, and he was passionate about Aikido, and that just like washed over me in the same way. Um, and so from a pretty young age, one, physically, I enjoyed the practice. It keeps you young, you fall, you roll, da da da. The physical part of it is fun. I mean, for me, Aikido is fun.
Yeah,
But also, I decided to make a
wouldn't keep
commitment.
coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why do it if you're not enjoying it? So what's nice is like you have to continue be very intentional about the practice. So there's like two versions of the spirit of Aikido, in my opinion. Because some people practice Aikido as a hobby, which is totally fine. They do it, it's fun. There's a little community there. You get to hang out with your friends, throw people around, laugh, catch up. But then there's like a very serious other side to Aikido that it kind of bleeds into, in Japanese terms, they call it Budo, which is like the spirit of the warrior. And some people use it kind of corny sense, like Budo, and it's they don't really catch the meaning. But it's where like all aspects of that pervade your life. Which sounds maybe oppressive to some people, like, oh, I have to do this all the time. But like when I take my bike to work, when I walk, when I do chores, when I do anything, there's Aikido behind it. And I think it's really good though, because it creates a sense of like responsibility to yourself. There's like some discipline. You have to be basically very intentional. That's something that guides me a lot. I think many people struggle with being intentional. They live their lives, and I don't know. I've heard so many stories, especially you and I have both been in science. Um, And I maybe this was similar to your experience. I think we've spoken about it some, but many people they'll go to get their undergrad and maybe they have a chance to do research and they really like it and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. So they just kind of maybe do a master's. Because like I guess and I'm for me, I did a master's because there are other reasons I needed to stay in town. I moved to France for my PhD, and many of the PhD students that I met over there, I said, why are you here? Like, why are you doing a PhD? And the phrase was just like, oh, I followed the path. Like I just kind of, imagine walking in a forest and it's like, well, I started on this one. I guess I got to keep going. Not that that's a bad thing. That could be a nice thing. There are paths for a reason, but a lot of the times they were a bit listless. Like they didn't have kind of a question in mind. They were like, I'm just doing it because this is like, I don't know anything different. And so I think the close ties between things like the spirit of Aikido that you can get, where you learn to be very intentional with everything that you do, translated very much into like how my career went in science. And when I decided to do a thing, it was done, and then I did it. And sometimes people trick themselves, like, I want to get, I want to do a martial art, or I want to change a lifestyle, or I want a new hobby. And they say, I'm doing this hobby. And they start. But
Yeah.
you have to choose every single day, and that's the hard part. And I think that's the nice thing that the spirit of Aikido that I think is truly special. I mean, and it's again another martial arts is that every day and every action, everything that you do, you have to kind of be very intentional with all of your actions. For me, that comes out of like when I pick things up or when I sweep or when I do a thing, I think, is this Aikido? Am I maintaining my training? When I cut my
Yeah.
vegetables, am I doing my shoulders weird or if am I cutting correctly?
Yeah.
And
It's
for
like the
me,
Mr.
that's
Miyagi,
special.
like washing the car, or wax on,
Exactly.
wax off.
Yeah, and a karate person, maybe it's different, or maybe it's not even martial arts, someone who does pottery, they're intentional. I've never done
Mm,
pottery, so I'm making all this up. But, I imagine as it's turning, if you make a wrong movement, it crumples. So that spirit of like, I think the spirit of Aikido, the spirit of Budo, of having that kind of stuff is that everything you do should be intentional. Um,
yeah.
yeah. I think to continue to yap about it. That doesn't mean be anxious. That doesn't mean to be anxious about everything.
Yeah.
In martial arts, often, I would in the beginning it's very slow, but soon if you wait a year to react to someone grabbing you, it's far too late. You've already been thrown or been defeated or however you want to think about it.
Yeah, you've
So
lost
you
the
have to,
moment.
yeah, the timing is wrong, and timing in martial arts is everything. Really good martial artists are not the strongest. They're the ones who can abuse weird space and time. And it's not magic or, Dragon Ball Z, but when they understand exactly the time they need to do one thing versus the other, it's very, very cool. And then, so in outside of the dojo, it's like, I'm not, there's not analysis paralysis. I decide to do and you do, and you do.
Yeah. It's
So
interesting. Earlier you had sort of mentioned the idea of, I decide to do it, it's done, and then I do it, which I really
yeah.
like the way you laid that out, at least with what I'm reading into it a little bit, is like when you've decided to do something in your mind, it's already done.
Mm,
Now you just need to take the steps for it to get there.
yeah, exact.
Yeah.
And then the hard part is, especially if it's a long process, you have to keep doing that. You can't decide one time. Um, yeah, you can't whiffle waffle, I think. Um, since we're talking about martial arts, if you start a technique and you're like, oh, you know what, maybe I should have moved like this, or like maybe I'll change. Too late. Uh, And so sometimes you choose and it's bad, and you have to live with the consequences, unfortunately. But luckily, the dojo that's not so serious. And in life, it depends on the decision, But I think that's the nice part of
Otherwise, you
martial
get
arts.
nothing. Yeah.
But yeah, also if you do nothing, you get nothing. The dumb sports story is that Babe Ruth was the home run king. Everyone remembers for crushing it. He also struck out more than any human being, I think, like whoever
Oh,
played
really?
baseball. Yeah, yeah. But at least he swung, at least he tried. I'd rather try 1,000 times and never do anything than just sit around wondering what could have been, right? Mm,
Absolutely.
mm,
And
yeah.
I remember, as your student,
Mm.
learning Aikido, that the something that stuck with me a lot was when we did our first tests in Aikido. For anyone that doesn't know, Aikido has actually it'd be better if you explained the ranking system on how
Oh,
Aikido
sure.
works.
Yeah. So, it's similar to other Japanese martial arts where you start out at a higher number. So, like sixth Q is someone who has learned and has t tested at least once and showed that they know the basic etiquette of the dojo, which is a huge part of it, and also some of the basic movements. As you practice, you go to fifth and fourth and third and second until you get to first Q. And Q is like learning ranks.
Yeah, it's your
And
white
then
belt.
it's the white belt. So in Aikido, we all have white belts the whole time. Around third or second kyu, depending on the school, you wear the very cool swishy black or blue pants, called hakama. And then when you test for your shodan, that's your first dan. So you go 6 to 1 and then 1 on up. And normally most humans will stop around uh 3 or 4, but it can go upwards traditionally to 7. Eighth is typically reserved for the be all end all. Eight is also like infinity. There's a lot of cultural significance to it. And normally, if you study under a master, maybe they have achieved 8 at the very end, and you would never try to step above them. So normally, someone only takes it when someone passes away, and you wait a bit of time. Mm.
And that would be your black belt when you switch over to Dan.
Yes, exactly. So you get your black belt at Shodan, so the first dan, and in different martial arts do it differently. In Aikido, first dan means I could ask you any technique and you should at least know what it should look like. Could you get it to function? No, maybe. The second and third dan is when you should be able to do it regularly. Fourth or fifth are not only can you do them all, you can instruct others really well. Maybe you've come up with a new exercise to help people you're starting to like. It's more about the mentorship aspect, and if you've developed your Aikido even higher. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, no
And
problem.
then back to so the story then is when we were doing our first testing, at least my first testing. I think it was the first one for Meiwakan
It
Boston.
was, yeah, you were the first person. You and Franz, I think, were together.
Yeah. And this was, I believe, December of 23. So I think it was the very end of that year, sometime around there.
Yeah,
And I was testing, and I didn't really know how any of this worked, but we went and did our different techniques. You told me what to do. I went and did a thing.
yeah,
Uh, and when we were done, you gave us all of our ranks, and you looked at me and you said, Jake, uh, there, you certainly knew some techniques. There's definitely a lot of technical work to be done. Um, but you came in with impeccable spirit. I think you said like, I don't even know what you did before you came in today, but keep doing that thing.
yeah. It was crazy, absolutely
And you
crazy.
had awarded me fifth Dan, right? So
Mm,
one above the bottom.
yeah,
And I think
fifth
that meant a
Q,
lot to
Q,
me.
Q.
Sorry, excuse me. Fifth Q. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't want to go claiming anywhere I have fifth Dan.
Be careful about that one. Someone might come and
Yeah.
test you.
Yeah, so you awarded me fifth Q,
Mm,
and I remember that meant a lot because what you were saying, the biggest thing was that anytime you said a technique, I would go for it, even if I wasn't doing it right. I made
yeah,
sure I was committing to doing it.
yeah, you did. Um, yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, and not to compare it to others, but like most people are, a lot of people are really nervous when they go up. Most people can pass without worry if no one was watching, but people watch, right? Uh, and most people fret or they'll get halfway through and be like, "Oh no, I did it wrong," and then they panic, they stop, and they reset, and that's something we try not to do in testing. Just let um one of my old teachers used to say, just like let your soul free. Just like let IQ come out of you no matter what it looks like. If it's total garbage, it's fine. Like it's not fine, right? Yeah, hopefully the technique is there. But the
Yeah,
spirit of like someone is coming and I'm doing a thing. It was crazy. In Aikido, we have Chisei, which is like our posture. Um, it's like a mental posture as well, which we don't talk about often, but physically you're upright and correct in your posture, but also like mentally you're calm, you're straight like a mountain. I always like the mountain imagery and no matter how hard the wind blows, the mountain stays. It's like Mulan. The quote from Mulan is basically what I think with with that. And other people had tested and others were good, but yeah, it was wonderful because you came in and just I think half the techniques were pretty close, right? But the composure you had the whole time, the spirit was correct. And also I appreciate a whole lot. I especially from you, and there's others in the dojo who do this, but things like etiquette, the way we bow, the way we sweep, kind of the ceremony of it. A lot of people find it kind of pointless and stupid. Um, but I typically show people all the little steps, and then I let go and see what they do. It- as a little small test. So if you're another student listening, I do this all the time. Because if you can't remember how to tie your belt or like salute at the right time Or when someone attacks you, it's a test and you move gracefully. Like if you can't do some of these basic things, what makes you think you can compile these very difficult techniques physically, if you can't fold something correctly? And that goes back to that intentional thing. Everything has got a purpose and intention. All that ceremony we do in the dojo, there's always a purpose behind these things. And so not only were the spirit in the test correct, but the bowing, the moving, the saluting, the thing, all of that stuff was very nice as well. And that, in my opinion, is sometimes more important than the physical piece. Now, if you were to, unfortunately, you move, but if you were to keep training, the physical piece also has to be good too. So don't let someone think you can get away with just that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's both sides of it are extremely
Yeah.
important. I
Mm-mm.
mean, in the spiritual work that I do, I know you and I have chatted about this a little bit.
Mhm.
Reason that I uh, found you was because I've been doing spiritual work for a number of years, and I was listening to some podcasts about it, and some of um, there's a martial arts component as you get sort of like higher in the school and your progression, and it's for the that reason of kind of the opposite. I think what you see in a lot of people that start with the very physical and find more of the ceremonial aspect through the spiritual world. A lot of people start with the spiritual aspect and how they want to live their lives and be a good person and be committed and have character. Um, but they ignore the physical piece of it. So
Mm-mm.
we have like senseis in the school who are very focused on the physical training and the martial
Yeah.
arts. They have like a program once a year where everyone gets together and they have a big martial arts
Oh, cool.
essentially retreat, which I'll be going to this next year for the first time. So I'm very excited for that.
Wonderful. Hopefully you do
Um,
an episode on it if it's something you're allowed to speak about after the fact.
yeah, oh, absolutely. There's actually lots of things, lots of different episodes online about they call it Warriors of Light.
Cool.
And I was listening to these podcasts and found, oh, like they talk about doing this martial arts stuff being really important. All right, maybe I should look into martial arts. So that's
Yeah.
when I was just sitting, I was doing laundry at the local laundromat, and I had just gotten to this thing of listening to podcasts while I do my laundry. I remember sitting in the parking lot looking up, on my phone, martial arts near me, and just looking at different websites. I sent you an email.
Yeah.
Uh, but it is something I've always appreciated, the marriage of the physical and, right, in your case of what you calling the ceremonial, um like the fact that we sweep the mats a
Mm,
very specific way,
mm.
and it's like
Yeah.
this is Aikido starts here.
Yeah. Yeah. We just talked about it this morning. I had class this morning. Because once a month we do a workout class. But before every class, there's always the first 20, 30 minutes are stretching and breathing. So actually a huge part of it is meditative. Um, and a lot of people will kind of roll their eyes at it because the stretches are like, and they'll think, whatever, I've done this 1,000 times, my neck is loose. Why do I do this? But all the breathing, all the stuff, so my type of Aikido comes from Tamara Sensei, who is the one of the creators of Aikido, one of his primary students, who then took it to France. And him, I mean, as well as others, you find many quotes from them saying, like, no, 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 all that stuff, Aikido begins there. For someone practicing Budo, Aikido never stops. But for those of you, like, if you need, separation, like the moment you enter the dojo, begins. Uh, in fact, they would used to. So Mikhail, my teacher, Mikhail Martin, he's in France and learned under Tamara Sensei for a little more than a decade as a live-in. It's called Uchideshi. They live in the dojo. If Tamara Sensei was somewhere, Mikhail was behind him, especially when they traveled to teach. But then Tamara Sensei lived in his own home. Mikhail lived in the dojo, cleaned it, swept it, and was responsible for practicing on his own time as well as being there for every single class or every single seminar that Tamara Sensei gave. Um, but you can see in all the writings, they always say, no, 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 all that stuff is the most important. For example, when Mikhail would walk in, they would practice and they would sit afterwards and maybe have a beer or something. He'd be like, how many people were there tonight? And if Mikhail hesitated, he was like, dead. Uh, you should know when you walk into a room, boom, boom, boom. I know how many people there, I know where they are roughly. It's mentally taxing. It's very hard in the beginning to think of all these things. And the role of the uchideshi is very tough because not only do you have to be the demonstrative partner, and maybe the person teaching is not even telling you what they're going to do, they're just whipping you around, and you have to make sure you're doing a good job. And then then you have to go and help others and do this, but also, that maybe the master wants tea at a certain point in the day, and you should know he has tea at 3. So I don't start tea at 3. That's insane. He wants tea at 3. I have to start tea here. Oh, but also have these responsibilities too. Um, and of course, the teacher likes to mess with people sometimes, but in general, like the dojo is like this machine, and everyone has their role. And the uchideshi one is very, very difficult because you have to keep um, basically the dojo alive while also being there for the teacher. And it's not because the teacher is full of himself and just wants you to do all of his chores. It's so that he is free to do other things like practice or communicate with others or do this. It's not like a weird servant relationship, although you do that. And the reason someone does it, the reason I did it with Mikhail for many years, is because you're given the opportunity to be with them always. If they are a Budaka, which normally these masters are, they are always doing Aikido. And if you want to know how to do Aikido like them, you just watch them always. I watch how Mikhail drinks his food. I can, if you put me like in a Mikhail mask, I could act like him perfect. I know exactly, I know all of his mannerisms, because maybe one of those mannerisms is important in the practice. But also he's a good person. I went to France knowing no French. I spoke very little, but I started Aikido almost immediately. And after class, we'd sit around, maybe have a beer or a chat, and they would all speak in French, and someone would tell a joke, everyone would laugh, and I'd be like, ha 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 ha. Ha. Like, I mean, you get the spirit, and I was like, man, who knows? Maybe all these people are really mean. Like maybe they're jerks, maybe they're making jokes about other people, maybe they're rude. Like, um, I mean, that was a thought for a microsecond, but you can tell even without speaking their language what kind of a person that person is. And so that the role of the uchideshi is lets you kind of absorb stuff like that. And typically they have achieved something. Maybe it's similar in your school, which I'm not super familiar with, but probably the people that you look up to as mentors, they have achieved something that you're like, dang, I wish I could do something like that, whether it be spiritual or physical. For me, it started physical and then later the other parts followed. But maybe others, I know other Aikido practitioners, it's different. And so you just
I
copy.
think,
Yeah, you just copy as much as you
yeah.
can. That's
Yep.
crazy. Mm,
Yeah. No, I agree. It's so important. The piece of like looking at the person and right, you decide this is a person of character. This is someone that I
mm,
want to, follow in their footsteps.
yeah.
Um, and like, in the mystery school, absolutely, they even talk about this a lot of the importance of titles. You and I
Yeah.
chatted a little bit about how I was going to introduce you for this podcast, and I
Mm,
decided, it's important. I say your titles, like you're a sensei, Dr. Wesley Clawson.
mm,
And those, in the school we have people that have a title like a Divina or Ipsissimus or something like that that shows that they have some level of understanding
yeah.
and that you can also reach if you
Yeah.
follow along this path. Right? If you want to be a sensei, in fact, you followed along the path, and eventually you had gained this title of
Exactly.
sensei.
Yeah. 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 Mm,
Yeah, and like now you're passing on your mannerisms. Like I have the list of West quotes that I want to make into t-shirts, and like if
yeah.
I'm ever talking to someone and don't quite have the words to describe what I'm saying, like it's just the stuff. You just gotta
The
rub for
extra.
anyone just listening. You gotta rub your fingers together, and it's just Wes's.
Mm,
There's something in there.
there's something special. Yeah.
That's the
And it
Aikido spirit. It's in between your
yeah.
fingers.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's something. It's normally always the stuff that's hard to describe, And when you follow those people, I think it's good. I mean, for sure, people have faults. No one's faultless. So you follow, and then when they have a fault, you're like, ooh, ooh, maybe not best to copy that one. You don't judge, but there's something that you see that's like maybe I copy parts. And then, of course, you don't lose yourself. I didn't become Mikhail. He and I are very different still. It's a nice blend of both.
Yeah,
Which
it's your
is
Aikido, which you've
mm,
you've talked about a lot to us, as a sensei, which is something I've always appreciated is like, oh, you're gonna go off into the world like I moved away. It's like, great, go, you can go join another Aikido dojo or another
mm,
martial arts, and then that will be your martial art that you are honing, right? You learn from the people and you follow their, the way that they teach it, but you're always gonna be you as
Yeah.
long as you don't give up yourself.
Yeah. And I don't think you should. If you lose yourself completely, I don't know, you got nothing to cling to. You're just kind of whipping in the wind, whatever fancy you follow. Um, mm, I mean, it's important in martial arts as well. I know a couple of people who they really want to do martial arts, so they join like three places at once. It could be really tricky to follow more than one path, because like, one physically they might move differently, and so your body has a hard time like building that base. I think it's important to look to others after you've established a base, but in the beginning, it's very important just to choose one and just go whole hog. Just do that. Don't think about it so hard. I mean, if they don't move
The
well and they're
intention,
bad,
right?
yeah, intention, yeah. I think when someone's like, "Oh, I want to do this, but I want to keep trying this, I want to try it," it's because they didn't actually choose. They've chosen four things in a way to cheat because they don't have that way they don't have to choose. And they'll say like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so tough. I do many things." It's like, no, no, you cheated and you didn't choose. You're just doing many things, and now it's all over the place. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. It's like you're I mean, truly that's like you don't have chisei. You're splitting your energy like we talk about a lot, right? It's not falling out, it's going out front and back and side to side and there's no stability. You're not the mountain.
exactly. Yeah, you can't be. You've avalanched off in so many directions. There's no mountain left. You've just spread yourself out too thin. No, I exactly. So there's the physical chisei, but again, acutely. If you're gonna do
Yeah.
something, so in Aikido, for people listening, like the secret to Aikido, at least ours, when you move, everything moves at once. For example, if I want, hopefully you can see if you're just listening, I'm holding my arm out straight. You don't try to wave it in many pieces. Boom, 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 where your elbow and your wrist and your hand all move at different tempos and different timings. When you move, your whole arm moves. But of course, when we're standing and doing techniques, both my arms move, and my shoulders, and my core, and my hips, and my knees, and my toes, my heels, everything moves. It's also part of like this idea of Chisei is like, imagine if you were an actual mountain, and part of the mountain went one way, and part of the mountain went the other way. There's no mountain left. So if the mountain's going to move, well, uh, and so the same way in life choices, like you mentioned, if you split yourself, uh, there's nothing much there. And then physically, when we do it in the dojo, the reason you can move someone in Aikido is because you move with full intention, all connected. Shoo. And that way you can
I
take
mean that
people's center. Yeah.
yeah. I mean it comes in like the mental sense too, right? It's like you show up to, like you show up to work, for example, but you're still thinking about something that went on at home, right? You didn't take your whole self with you. You left your mind at home
Yeah.
or you brought a piece of that in with you, like you brought home with you to work and
Yeah. Ruins it.
it's all out of
Yeah.
whack now.
I will say, from the mental side, I'll bring in some of the neuroscience stuff. You cannot multitask. It's impossible. We know this. You switch. So if you're trying to multitask, like listening to music or your brain for sure is like being beaten by the music in your head. But if you actually listen, your mind doesn't focus on what you're doing. For sure. We know this. Um, and so it's very similar. Like in the beginning of Aikido classes, we have a moment where we just kind of sit, and it's to bring. If you happen to have brought something else with you, or if you've left a part of you behind, you bring it together and be there. And the classes are only an hour and a half. I want 100% of you all there. Boom. The world for me when I teach, they thank God there's a clock on the wall. Like the everything goes away. Like there's nothing outside of the dojo when I do. Like I could be doing it if without a clock and I would just do it forever and forget.
Fairly certain the way every class has ended is you looking at the clock, oh man, we're all right, I guess we're past time, everyone. All right, let's line up and we'll do our stretches.
Line up and get out of here because I have gone 10 minutes over again. I got in trouble the other day. This is just a funny story. The clock was running 30 minutes behind. I didn't realize.
Oh,
My wife, I was like, "Hey, where are you? You're supposed to be home like an hour ago." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Class just ended." Because I have no like internal sense of time. I was
yeah,
relying on the clock, but it was slow. But I was
that's
I
so
was
funny.
there. I wasn't really thinking about it. It's a bad excuse, but The one I've got.
You're in the moment.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Now,
in work and life and stuff like that, it's a very, very similar concept.
yeah, how has sort of your work been influenced by your martial arts practice?
I think the biggest one is what we've already spoken on. Like it's very intentional. Especially in lab, you've worked in a science context as a PhD student, a graduate student. A lot is happening. There's experiments, there's the PI, there's actual classes, there's your lab mate. There's a lot. It's easy to kind of get to go and do a bunch all day, and then at the end of the day, you're like, what the hell did I do today? Like, did I do anything? Probably not. Or it was, but not, you didn't like achieve anything, or you didn't push something forward. So I think the primary way it's affected me is like when I sit down to do a thing, like I do a thing. Um, you know, and taking steps to make sure that the environment that I have supports that. Um, but then on a scientific side, I do think about a lot of these things. Like I'm an engineer and scientist, so when Mikhail, who is my teacher, moves, for example, I always think, how could I measure that? What's going on in his body? What biophysically, what's going on? Like, could I do this? Is something about him different? And of course, I've never gotten really the chance to do a lot of that stuff, but I think it helps outside of the intentionality thing we discussed is that um, I'm teaching now, and I've been teaching now for a couple of years. But Mikhail has been teaching and doing Aikido for over 30. And so sometimes he's like, oh, let's move like this. And he does a thing, and we're all like, what does that even mean? He's like, it's like this, it's easy. It's like when you sweep, it kind of goes. And you're like, okay, great. Um, and sometimes and he admits this to himself, he doesn't remember what it's like to learn some of those really basic things. So, as a good scientist, what I do is as I start to figure out some of the more complex things, I try to break them down and try to build exercises and things like that into the classroom. And I test by teaching some people one way, other people another way to see if there's any difference over time. Because people have lives. Unfortunately, not everyone can come to every class. So I know some students come to like Mondays only, and some students come to Thursdays only. So I'll cheat and I'll teach a certain way on Monday and a certain style on Thursday and kind of see which type. So that's the scientist in me, like doing little experiments in the dojo to see what works.
It's a wonderful secret you've now shared.
Come to all the classes and it would have been obvious, is what I say to the students.
It's a good pitch.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, like I said, the how that's affected work itself is that intentionality thing. I mean, it's everything. So the dojo is an environment where that's easy to do. So I'm at work, I create an environment where certain tasks are easy to where I can put my full self with my physical and mental chisei can shoot off like a rocket. Um, that might take a little bit of steps of making your calendar look a certain way or constructing your office set up to be a certain way so that you're not easily distracted. But a lot of that's all mental, right? It takes mental discipline for sure. It's hard.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, even the mental discipline of like showing up to Aikido, like you were just, joking about, of like making sure you show up every time. That's like in
A
itself
choice
is its
every
own
day.
test.
Yeah, yeah. Just like in the lab. You know, sure I could do that one extra thing or it's not to overdo. You don't want to be constrained by overworking or anything like that. But every day, every time you do a thing, not only do you have to do it and do it correctly, that's a whole thing. You have to choose to do it, and you have to choose to do it correctly. Like and that concept is just pervasive. It touches everything. So like when I do a thing, I don't tend to chat with people during hard things so I work in an environment where I have to move very tiny amounts of liquids from one place to another in very specific patterns with very specific timings. And the people that I train probably hate me because I'm like, no, no, absolutely not. No. The amount of rigor that you have to do stuff like that correctly is extremely high. The joke we use in the lab is perfectly neurotic. Um, But I mean, in Budo is the same way, like the way I move. You have to be perfectly neurotic about all that stuff because the moment you let one thing slip, it's like, oh, it's not so, it's fine if I let this slip, it's fine, it's fine. But then like, well, that slipped. Well, now this might slip. It's like, oh, it's fine. Every time you say it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's not. Um, the the phrase that I use in both Aikido and work when I'm teaching people is many people like to find excuses to not do things. Like, oh, I'm tired today, or oh, it's Sunday morning. Like, oh, the other day I fell on my shoulder, it's a little boo-boo, and I'm a little sore, so I better not. You're always hunting for a reason to not. In a lab, it's like, oh, it's going to take another hour. Or like, oh, if I have to do those negative controls or something, it's a science term, like, ugh, that's going to take time. Oh, that's terrible. You're looking for little excuses to excuse yourself out of hard work. But rather, you should flip it and find excuses to do. Like, yeah, my shoulder
Mm,
hurts, but if I go, I'll move, and I can edit the practice a bit. I can go, I can see the people, and I can
yes.
get that Aikido energy back. If I do those negative controls, think about how nice, like there'll be no ambiguity in the thing that I do now. So I think
Absolutely. It's
finding
like there's
excuses to do.
yeah, yeah. It's like the a thing that actually my current boss will often say is return the I can't because into I can if.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing. It's perfect. Just drilling that
Awesome.
into your head. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been so wonderful, Wes. Thanks so much for joining.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, do you want to share where people could find you, find the dojo, anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. So we're in Somerville, Mass. Or Medford. We're out on the line, but we're at meiwakanboston.com. And if you're ever in France, if you type in meiwakanaikido.com, you'll find where all of our international locations are. And anyone's always welcome.
Awesome. You want to spell that out for people just so they can
Oh,
find that?
sure. Sorry. It's Meiwakan is Meiwa. No, W. Oh my gosh. Meiwakan. Meiwakan. And then Aikido is Aikido. Hmm.
Awesome. I'll probably also put it in the description, but just in case, I figure let's cover all our bases. So
Yeah,
anyone that's like, I want to find that, it doesn't get lost.
yeah, yeah. And there's some good YouTube. If you search that on YouTube on any Google, will all pop up. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wes. And then thank you everyone for listening. This has been Science to Sorcery.